Verbally Effective with Ina Esco is an interview-style podcast that intersects art, culture, politics, and entertainment with a Memphis focus. Each week, I'm joined by a featured guest with roots in Memphis. Verbally Effective delves into each guest's personal journey to uncover the incredible stories fueling their purpose, the highs and lows of their pursuits, and how through their passion, they are moving the culture forward. Be sure to follow Verbally Effective and Ina Esco on Instagram. Also, download the Verbally Effective podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play Music. Don't forget to check out the website and submit to be a guest at verballyeffective.com. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Verbally Effective podcast. This is the podcast that intersects art, culture, politics, entertainment with a Memphis flair. I am your host, your double E, Ina Esco. And like many of you out there, we were watching the video of Tyre Nichols' tragedy, and I told myself I wasn't going to watch it, but I couldn't help myself. It's like it was there. So I have a guest with me today that is an alum of the Verbally Effective podcast. He's here for his part two. And, I thought that he would be awesome in talking out some of these issues with how we're feeling in the community of Memphis right now. I have with me Tennessee House District 98, Antonio Parkinson on the Verbally Effective podcast. He is a father, a business owner, record label owner, retired fireman. Okay. Right. You're a retired firefighter.
I am. I retired in 2015.
In 2015.
Best thing ever. Anytime somebody asks me about that, man, it feel like day one.
How long were you a firefighter?
25 years in Shelby County.
Okay, you got that good tenure with them firefighters.
Yep. Send that check. Okay. Don't have to show up. Send that check.
And you are the owner of 90110 record label.
I am.
How you get into that business?
I've been in that business. If you really think back some years, I used to be over the Memphis and Shelby County Music Commission here. I don't know if y'all remember Johnny Walker. I'm the one that brought Johnny Walker back to Memphis, and had her as the executive director of the Music Commission. You remember them days, don't you?
I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but I've been an owner of recording studios from way back even before then.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
How's business going?
Business is good.
Okay.
Business is good.
We were listening to some of your beats just now. I was like, well, look, you can cross over into the pop genre with your beats. Like, that's what the vibe I'm getting,
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely been an evolution. I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's my what I call my safe space. To be able to get in and do some music production and just sink in and clear the world out. And live in that space. I love it. I honestly love it. It runs in my family too.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's almost like you got to have a balance because you've been in politics for a while. You have to have some type of outlet and something, to kind of balance everything out. Yeah,
that creative side is definitely that side for me. So, anything creative. I'm working on 2 books right now. The music, of course, and then we have our clothing company, Popular Mail, popularmail.com, shameless plug. Yeah.
Popularmail.com.
Popularmail.com, yep.
Okay.
Check it out. It's so a lot of times I get asked about, the clothes I wear or the hats and the accessories and stuff like that. So, I said I need to find a way to be able to kind of corral all of this and put it in a box so people can get access to it.
Yes, and I always see you on social media. You TikTok famous too,
right?
Because you're gonna post, and that's one of the things I love about you, seeing another side of the man on social media. Why is that so important for you to be active on social media?
Honestly, the biggest part of that. Well, first of all, I got a marketing company. My company, Black Market Strategies. That's the foundation for everything that I do, honestly, and that was born out of it's a marketing, public relations, and public opinion company, but it was born out of everything I learned in the music business and marketing and promotions. Especially when we were out here doing the street teams back in the day. I was one of the first. I always credit myself and Pepper. We were one of the first, to be out here with street teams to push music in the Memphis market. and so we got so good at it that we were kicking the major labels in their ass, so they started hiring us to do their work in the Memphis market. And back then, we used to be able to we called it sniping, putting the posters on the poles
I
and all of that stuff.
All that. My introduction to radio.
Right. So that was us out there, man, cluttering up the city. Putting the posters on the wall and getting the music out and the snippets out back then. And it wasn't even a snippet CD; it was a snippet tape back then.
Okay.
That I built the foundation of my marketing company, Black Market Strategies, off of what I learned from that, and it grew exponentially, and we started getting into more of the corporate spaces, hospitals and other companies like that, large and small. So that's one of our mainstays, and it's also the vehicle that gets people elected. So now we run a lot of people's elections in Shelby County and Memphis. Approximately about 65-70% of the judges that are elected come through Black Market Strategies, come through us.
And you handle all of their marketing.
Right. A lot of the city council members, more than half of the city council members, a lot of the county commissioners and a lot of the state legislators. We handle their marketing and their election operations.
So as long as you've been doing this, you've seen, like you said, when you first started with Street Team on feet, out and about. Now everything is online.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that too. But that main foundation is still there. People still want that direct marketing. Because you think about it, you got different demographics. So like a lot of those voters are not necessarily on TikTok.
Yeah, right. It's an older population.
Right. And so, and we still today, we have not abandoned our foundation with putting flyers inside of the sick go on the counter for people to grab, or in some of the other, places where people frequent, the beauty shops and barber shops, number one stop will always be, because that's the hub for Black communication. The beauty shops, barber shops, and the churches. Right, the hubs for communication. So that's always going to be a foundation space to start marketing and promoting something that Black people need to have access to.
Yeah. Well, let's get into your role as a Tennessee House District 98. What has been some of the interesting bills and laws coming down the pipeline here in 2023 that you've been a part of?
Well, I want to go back a little bit, before that, some of the things that some of the bills that I've authored and created and brought to fruition. I believe in empowering our people. So one of the you've probably seen this now is, I passed a bill that broke up the monopoly for the cosmetology schools. And let me give you a little bit of background on that. So there were about 60 cosmetology school owners across the state of Tennessee. All of them were white. Right.
All of them were white.
So we're talking about the Empires, the Goulds, all of these guys, right? And so, but people, when the trend shifted from relaxed hair to natural hair, people were having to go through these full cosmetology schools, borrowing anywhere between $15,000 and $30,000 to complete 1,500 hours of cosmetology school. So I passed a law that made it so you can open up freestanding schools for natural hair and aesthetics and manicuring. And when we did that, the Black ownership of these schools shot through the roof. And so I can tell you the numbers. We went from I think we had 112 natural hairstylists in 2013 in the entire state. Now we got thousands. Since 2013 or 2015 when the first school opened. Now we literally have thousands. And you keep in mind that these natural hair schools, they are not only creating licensed individuals for, natural hair care, but these individuals also go on to open up businesses of their own too. And so it's a business that breeds businesses.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's one of the bills that I'm proud of. Now this year, and we also in that, let me go back, in that also we also made it so that they they can have an apprenticeship program in it too, which is very important because you go to school half of the time, so it's only 300 hours to become a natural hairstylist. You go to school for 150 hours, then you go work in a salon for the other 150 while you're in school, so you can make some money, so you can pay for your school, right, and also get a chance to build your clientele before you become fully licensed, and then by the time you become fully licensed, you have a clientele. You know, you've been vetted by a salon. If you're working in a salon with someone else, you had a mentor, all of this stuff. So all of that stuff went into the legislation to make it the legislation that it is today. And now we're doing the same thing for lash techs now for this year. So this is the new legislation that's coming. It's going to be the same formula. You know, I think it's about 300 hours, if I'm not mistaken. It's either 300 or 600. And you're going to do half of it. You can do half of it in school, half of it in a salon. And and get to work. And so we put more Black folks to work faster.
I love to see it.
And we create more Black businesses, more Black ownership, and also the possibility to regain control of what is ours, and that's Black hair that has been controlled by Koreans and other folks in this and others.
And it's amazing. I met a young lady who opened a Black-owned beauty supply store, and we had a live podcast, Chastity, and she's in Midtown, Pink Noir, and we talked about the barrier to entry into that space. It's mostly owned by Koreans, and the barrier of entry is very hard for an African American. But she's in there and she's thriving. But of course, the supply chain, the same ethnicity. So it's been a challenge, but she's,
And it's incredibly disheartening, the fact that we weren't even controlling our own hair.
Our own hair. And they're exploiting us.
Right. And so, but I'm on a mission to make sure that, anything that is ours, it stays in our hands, But and this is a perfect segue into this Tyre Nichols stuff. I'm not trying to rush you or push your agenda, but when you think about, I mentioned this on a couple of the other channels last night in regards to this Tyre Nichols case. The fact that we struggle in unifying and supporting each other, and the level of or the amount of self-hate that exists in our community with us to another, it makes sense why, we weren't in control of our own damn hair.
That's true.
And so, and you think about it, if you got this sister that has this beauty supply store, we should all be rushing in there to buy, supplies from her. But I'm telling you, that whole issue of Black self-hate, that's something that we are going to absolutely have to address, because it not only is what you saw with 5 Black officers that killed Tyre Nichols, but it's also for that person that shoots and kills someone every day in Memphis, whether it's in Memphis or Chicago or any other place, right? It's also what you see politically. That same self-hate exists in the political sphere also.
Oh, definitely does.
And so, we see from my colleagues, I got colleagues, I won't name any names, but I got colleagues that would, if they could have delivered me to that death that Tyre Nichols had, they would do it in a heartbeat. And it's sad and unfortunate, that we have this situation, and it's the elephant that no one wants to talk about. Yeah. Our own personal accountability as a culture, it has to be addressed. We have to address, our issues as a people.
Yeah.
Because had that been done, and had it, Tyre Nichols would still be alive today.
That's true.
Yeah.
And Antonio, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I first heard about the Tyre Nichols tragedy, when I heard that it was 5 Black officers, it just hit different. It just, you weren't expecting to hear that.
No,
that's not what we are used to hearing.
Right.
And it does something to you, like, well, how could they do that to each other? Like, and it goes back to the self-hate that you're talking about. But I think it goes to a lot of more issues that we're having with the Memphis Police Department with reform that we've been talking about for years. And I think now they're going to start listening. I hope.
Well, I'm not so sure about that, but I think you're absolutely right. You got a couple of different things happening there. You know, you got the black on black issue. You know, that self-hate issue. Then you have a cultural, the bad, toxic culture of law enforcement. So two different things happening, but they collided at the same time with this Tyre Nichols case. Right. And then I tell you this too, you know, and I've every single interview that I've done, I've publicly apologized for, because I discovered something about myself, those hidden biases that I have in myself, right?
Like what?
You know, because when I first heard that there was a young black man killed by the police, I didn't just assume, but I knew that. I said, no. So it's at the most one, not that, but at the most, you might have 4 white officers and 1 black officer that happened to be on the scene.
Oh, you thought that's
right?
Okay.
And you know, and I had to admit to myself, you know, it was wrong for me to assume that was the case, but this is what I have become conditioned.
We've all been conditioned to
right,
think
but I had to publicly apologize, because when those black faces hit that screen, it's like all of the air was sucked out of me. I didn't even emotionally. I tell people this too. Emotionally, I didn't even know. I was so emotionally confused at that moment.
You didn't know how to digest.
I didn't know how to digest it, process
understand.
it. You know, was saying, no, y'all got the wrong people on the screen. You know, and then I was in a space where, okay, so do we protest and cut up now?
Right.
What do we do? What do we do now that we know it's 5 black officers that did this?
What do we do?
How do we respond to this? How do I respond to it personally? Right? I was literally in a state of paralysis, emotional paralysis, because I didn't know which way to go, which way to turn on this.
I feel you on that.
Right. And then when, you know, they moved as swiftly as they did, the thought hit me like, well, damn, they don't move this swiftly with white officers. Then I find myself, am I defending these black officers?
Right.
You know, so there's a whole plethora of left, right, bipolar shit happening, right?
That's true.
With this whole situation, because it's an entirely different dynamic that we have never been in as a black people. Well, that we hadn't seen as a black people.
Right.
And those individuals that did that to Tyre Nichols, they don't deserve our defense. You know, but at the same time, when white officers do it, we want this swift justice also for those white officers. You know, and it's still going to be those 2 sets of standards and 2 sets of rules. These black officers are not going to get the support of Blue Lives Matter and
everybody's been saying they've been very quiet. They haven't said a word. Blue Lives Matter.
They're not going to say a word because they're black officers. But if it was white officers, you know, you had Blue Lives Matter, or GoFundMe would have been set up before they were even charged, millions of dollars in the GoFundMe, which would have delayed the charges and, you know, brought the best defense and all this stuff. But you got one of them that hadn't even made bail yet. And so he's still sitting in jail. No, there's 4 of them out.
And who bonded them out? The union?
I don't know. I've heard that, you know, that speculation, but I'm not 100% sure if that's the case, because even the union came out with a statement that kind of distanced the union from, you know, the acts of these individuals after the video dropped last night. So I'm not sure, but, you know, but I tell you, it puts us in a different space that we hadn't been before, and you know, and a whole different cognitive space, and, you know, trying to figure out,
how do you move forward?
How do you move forward? How you respond?
So where were you last night when you saw this video, and what were your immediate thoughts?
Yeah, so I was at Channel 5 and when I watched the video for the first time, and you know, it literally made me sick. Literally made me sick. You know, I got a headache. I got a headache immediately, you know, after watching it. You know, and you know, just to see that. It takes an emotional toll on you, you know, to see, and then you when you have to factor that these are our people doing this to our people, and I just don't understand, and I'm trying to wrap my arms around how is it that they didn't see their nephews, their sons, their neighbors, their friends in Tyre Nichols as they were doing this to him. They literally stood him up with his hands behind his back, handcuffed, and were hitting him.
When the man had the baton, that's what got me.
Right,
like
kicking him.
Why?
Yeah, and then when you hear the description from his mom, when she saw him in the hospital, and when she was saying his neck was literally exploding, basically open because of the swelling,
it's hard. And to hear Tyre cry for his mother that was only so many feet. Yeah. They were in his neighborhood. He was almost home. He kept crying out for his mom, which took me back to George Floyd, calling for his mother. And it just hurt my heart because I could think that could have been my son.
Yeah.
Like, what did this boy do? And it almost makes you feel like, is this personal? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, it's I don't know if of course there's a lot of speculation out there if it was had something to do with something personal, and
if it did, the charges should change.
Yeah, because it will change if that's the case. And as a matter of fact, we all witnessed the fact that there were more than 5 officers out there too.
Right, I said it's way more than 5 people on the scene.
Yeah, but I suspect that there's going to be more charges coming. There could even possibly, as you just alluded to, there could even be possibly be upgraded charges based on what the storyline comes out to be.
And something that was also noticeable in that neighborhood, we're talking about East Memphis, at the time of day it was, no one came out of their house. Nobody wanted to be involved.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm nosy as hell. If I see the police across the street, I'm gonna open the door and maybe stand in my driveway, but nothing.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Especially at that time of night, and as quiet as it was in that neighborhood. Yeah, that was very interesting. But I also, after 25 years on the fire department here in Shelby County, I've never seen a situation where those of us that have been sworn to render care, protect, the public, where no care was rendered, and that part killed me. It took
28 minutes for him to get in that ambulance because I watched it on CNN because they had unedited footage, and the sky cam was the best view, of course, and it was going on and on. Cops walking back and forth, looking at him, not rendering any care. That hurt my heart, and he just kept slumping over. I was like, "Oh my God, how long is this gonna take?"
Yeah, that and then to listen to, the high fives and bragging about, you did this and you did that, and he still didn't die, or he still didn't, pass out, or it's sickening. It's truly sickening, and truly unacceptable too, and it goes, culturally too. I talked about this earlier about becoming desensitized to some of these situations and these issues. I think it's important for people to know, our people to know that you don't have to accept, these conditions. You don't have to accept hearing the gunshots, throughout the night. You don't have to accept, death in your community every day. You don't have to accept that. But I do think that we really, really, truly need to change the model for how we speak to these issues. We and I say this all the time, right? And there's nothing against people that protest. Protest brings great awareness to issues, but everybody's aware of this issue. The media brought awareness to this issue.
Yes, they did.
But I always say that America has a primary language, and it's not English and it's not Spanish. It's capitalism. Mm-hmm. That's their primary language, and if you're not speaking that language, you basically sound like Charlie Brown's teacher to the people that matter. Right? Seriously, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so they will let you protest till your legs give in, till your ankles give out, and you can't walk no more. They'll let you burn down the buildings because all of them are insured. You know, everything to that bag of potato chips that you loot is insured, right? And then they'll decide whether or not they're going to put that building back in your neighborhood or put it in another neighborhood that they've been eyeballing anyway, right? And so, you know, that model, it obviously is not working because we got another police killing.
Yeah.
Right?
Not in 2023. I don't think the protests,
and again, let me say this so that the protest people don't come and try to run us off with rakes and pitchforks. There's nothing wrong with you protesting and letting your voice be heard. And by all means, let your voice be heard. But if we are not directing our spending, it's falling on deaf ears. Because they know one thing for sure. We've been under the petri dish in America and been studied in America longer than any other people in America.
Yes, we have.
And so they know that nobody ain't talking about Trayvon Martin right now.
They got so much data on us.
Right. They know that we're gonna once we finish protesting, that people are gonna forget. They know that people are, George Floyd, nobody was mentioning George Floyd 3 weeks ago. They're mentioning George Floyd now because of, Tyre Nichols, but they know we're going to forget. They know it's going to die down and things are going to go back to normal, right? All of that money that was for diversity that came through all these corporations after George Floyd, you ain't heard nobody else, none of these corporations talking about that. NFL does, I give them a shout, but you ain't heard nobody else talking about this stuff.
No, they have reevaluated that budget,
right.
and it's not the same.
Right, and but if we are not talking about, if we as a black people do not get together, and I don't even want to say the unify word because that doesn't happen with us, but if we do not get together and direct how we spend our money and who we spend our money with, because all it's going to take is one example. You pull that black dollar away from one business and they will go screaming bloody murder to the powers that be. Hey, you got to stop this behavior. We got to do something else because they are drying us up over here because these black folks ain't spending their money with us no more. It takes one example.
One good example.
One example for one corporation. One example.
And I guess, to follow up with your point, last night there was a peaceful protest, although you would have thought the way the media was pushing as if we were going to clown and disrupt after we saw the video. I didn't have that feeling. Activists that I know I talked to, they're like, no one on our team is trying to, tear the city up. So to me, it seemed like it was a narrative being pushed, especially by big media, as if Memphis was about to burn to the ground. Did you feel that? So it goes back to me apologizing for my hidden bias, right? There are hidden biases on other sides too, right? And the fact that, saying that, they expected us to, burn, baby, burn, right? But I want to cautiously say that because, that what we saw last night was just the beginning of, the initial reaction to, the video being released. Now, we hadn't seen the planned protest yet. That was the impromptu protest. That was the impromptu. Right. They stopped 55 to stop commerce. That was the intent. Right. And so the planned protest, I'm sure there's going to be more across the country, not just here in Memphis, but that's that. But they again. I was conditioned to seeing white officers being involved in this, and it wasn't. And the powers that be are conditioned to seeing things get out of control, and it wasn't. Right.
So, so there's those biases on both sides.
And, just like you mentioned, we're struggling with our thought process with this because it was 5 black officers. What are the white officers and the white folks feeling like right now? Have you talked to any? Like, what are their thoughts on this? Like, we ain't in it.
I didn't get that from him. I talked to some of the white officers, some of the MPD brass last night, and and honestly just encouraged them, because here's the thing, again, goes back to those emotions all over the place, right? Because we know people that work in Memphis Police Department, man. We got cousins and aunts and. Some people got mothers and dads and brothers and fraternity members, that work in, Memphis Police Department. and we kick it with them, and I can go down to a cigar shop and whoop certain Memphis police officers and Domino's. They know who they are.
You know who you are.
You know who you are, right? And these are our friends, right? And so I spoke to some of the at least one of the white Memphis police officers, kind of high ranking, and just encouraged them, and told them to hang in there. Spoke to my precinct commander at Austin P Station, Colonel Ross, who's a great guy, right? And I also spoke to some of the heads of one of the heads of the African American officers for Memphis Police Department, and had a conversation with them in regards to how we can help them from a media standpoint, right, to put some distance between and some space between the African American police officers or the African American Police Association and those individuals that were responsible for this act, because it's easy for it's so irresponsible what they did, because it's easy for people to create an association with all black officers because of the acts of those individuals that were on the scene that night, and it's dangerous, because if a person is in fear and they feel like their life is in danger, they might start being offensive minded with these officers, whether it's shooting or trying to hurt the officers, thinking that the officers are trying to hurt them. And so it's we're in an interesting space, where it's going to take a lot of healing and a lot of, and I hate to use this word, but a lot of conversation, and acts that are going to bring us all back together.
Yeah. What do you know about that Scorpion unit? Like, what was the mission of the Scorpion unit? Do you know?
So, in all honesty, I didn't even know the Scorpion unit existed until this news hit, and so it was a first for me hearing about it, but I quickly, associated with the likes of the Cobra unit that existed in Atlanta Police Department back in the day, back in the Freaknik days.
What you know about that?
I don't know nothing about that. They used I know the Cobra unit used to keep us acting right. Make sure, yeah, because they were very present.
Okay,
yeah.
So Scorpions seem to be present in unmarked cars.
Right.
A group of black men. I've heard a few things about the Scorpion unit, but nothing just really confirmed yet. But we've been hearing so many things, and this is just the beginning, like you said.
Just the beginning.
So what are we hoping for? I hear you mention conversation. We need to have conversation. What does that look like? Like more podcasts, more TV interviews, like it needs to be more sessions together in Memphis.
It needs to be conversations, but solution oriented conversations, right? And all of them don't need to be before the cameras. We don't need that. We need some real, and especially with us as black people. We got to sit down and get our shit together. We really do. And we got to, start putting these issues and these distrust that we have with each other, and this crab in the bucket syndrome that we have with each other. We got to get rid of that shit, because it's killing us, literally killing us. And and we are being delivered to death by our own people. Yeah. You hear where, I forget, it's floating around on social media, where they say, man, we're doing the job of the Klan. Yeah, because, we're killing our own. We're delivering our own people to their death. And then the conversation about whether or not, about parents, we got to have real conversation with parents about being parents to their kids, right?
True.
And not being the best friends to your kids, and actually parenting. Yeah. And making sure your kids are doing what they're supposed to do, and making sure, that you're imparting the wisdom in your kids, as much as possible. And even with that, you can tell Tyre Nichols, he had the wisdom, because he was trying to de-escalate, but that doesn't always work, But we got to have these conversations, and not just conversations, because I'm sick of conversations. I'm sick of meetings. But we got to have solutions that we actually deliver on.
Yes.
At all levels of Black society. And that goes for us as elected officials. That goes for, the head of the household. Right. And, it's not going to all be born on elected officials. Like, I'll give you an example. We passed a law, if I'm not mistaken, we passed a law for a duty to intervene, so I think that's the law of the state.
What does that mean, duty to intervene?
That means that if you see an officer, mishandling or mistreating a citizen, and you're another officer, by law, you have to intervene and stop them from doing that.
If you're another officer.
Right.
No one exercised that last night.
No, not one single person exercised that on that video. Mm-mm. Yeah, and that's the law. Yeah, they were supposed to uphold the law. They were sworn to uphold the law, and that's the law, and they didn't uphold the law.
Let me ask you this, Antonio. Have you ever had an altercation with a police officer?
I remember being at Denim and Diamonds.
I remember the days.
D&D. I had just got my brand new Dodge Durango.
Okay.
And so I was Durangoing, right? Couldn't tell me nothing. Right? Not with the white Dodge Durango.
Not that
right?
judge.
A 99 at that.
Come
right,
on.
right. And so I remember they surrounded the parking lot of Denim and Diamonds and shut everything down
police was always there.
Man, yeah, but this time this looked like some New World Order stuff. I'm like, man, I didn't even know we had that many police officers in Memphis. You remember how big that parking lot was, right?
It was huge.
There was no escape off the parking lot.
Dang.
Right. I mean, all cars, police cars, blue lights, everything couldn't, so you couldn't even get off the lot unless they let you off the lot. And they were sweeping for warrants and all of this stuff at Denim and Diamonds that day. And I remember trying to get off the lot and I was a firefighter then too. So, I showed them my firefighter ID, and they still talk really, really crazy to me. And, basically they say, I don't give a fuck if you're a firefighter and your new truck. You drive that motherfucker off the curb if you want to get off.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. So it was kind of crazy, but I ain't had very many incidents, with Memphis Police Department, because I've always been a supporter, especially from our precinct, because being on the ground with the people, we have to be able to work with the police department and the people, and in a lot of cases, some cases, run as intercessories between the two, so that we keep the police community relations and help to keep the police community relations intact and in order.
Okay, gotcha. Now, are your conversations the same or different with your sons? You have sons?
No, I don't have sons. I got daughters. But my conversation's the same with my daughter. And I've always been uncut with my daughters,
Gotta
right?
be.
So about everything, not just this stuff, but about everything,
My
right?
dad was too.
They get the uncut language, uncut versions, uncut everything. So they are very aware of what's happening out here in these streets.
In these streets.
These streets.
Daddy
right.
gonna tell them.
Right.
If ain't nobody else gonna tell them.
Right. Yeah.
What are their thoughts on the situation? Y'all talked about it?
Yeah. I talked to my daughter about it more from my youngest daughter, more from a precautionary standpoint. Not in detail, but about just get out the streets. Just chill for a second. She's a licensed stylist. My daughter, shout out to Kirsten Parkinson. She became a licensed stylist at 16.
Wow.
Right. And so she has
early.
Yeah, and she has literally clients every weekend, right? Mm-hmm. So she's still in high school, right? And she literally has clients Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so I was just explaining to her that no ripping and running this weekend because it's hot out there, right? And we need to see what's going to be happening with the situation, and I told her about the situation, what was going on, and so.
Yeah, I had to have that discussion with my son as well, because he wanted to get out in them streets. I'm like, no, baby, tonight, not tonight. Let's see how everything goes.
Right. How old is he?
17.
Yeah, my daughter's the same age, so
Yeah. So, I hope and pray that things get better. I've heard a lot of activists talk about the reform that they have been requesting from MPD. Hopefully some of those things will get reviewed and looked at now. And like you said, more conversation, right?
Well, but, and I don't want to just be conversation though. It has to be
solution
oriented. Yeah, because I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste
Gotcha.
anybody else's time. I don't want to see no grandstanding just to get in front of the crowd and
so
say.
CJ got a lot of work on her hands, right?
Man, I think there needs to be a review of Memphis Police Department from the top to the bottom.
And who does that review?
I guess the mayor would have to bring in somebody, that would be independent. But
has it ever been done?
I think the feds did it one time, or they did it for the jail or something, and that maybe